Welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast with Jake and Zach. Ready for another week of college football. Slowly been heating up as the season comes along and we get a little more knowledge of what each team's bringing to the table. Small list of games for us today. So, Jake, where we're going to start at?
Yeah, I'm going to start with Texas Tech and Utah, 16 versus 17. I feel like it's a great place to start in this weekend. Um, I've been kind of back and forth just all week because I know Texas Tech has spent a buttload of money on NIL and their recruiting process is getting a lot better. But I'm going to stick with Utah money line at home here. I feel like they're a bit of a different team at home. Dampier, their new quarterback, has actually looked pretty solid in the first couple games. And Whittingham or Kyle, I can't remember what his last name is. I think it's Whittingham. But he doesn't lose a whole lot of games at home. So I think that Utah will have a solid chance to win this game. So I'm going to stick with them on the money line.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Texas Tech obviously coming off a huge upset win with 10 seconds left or something against Notre Dame. Uh,
Well, that was
that was a weird
A&M.
game. Uh,
A&M. Yeah.
oh, you're right. You're right. That was A&M. I lied. Um,
But
anyway,
they still
yeah,
look solid. Yeah.
yeah, they still look solid. Texas Tech's been solid too. I think three wins as well, 3-0. But yeah, Utah is very good at home all the time. Kyle's got a really good defensive team every single year. He has those guys ready to play, and the offense becomes more question mark for them. But they do play much better at home. Definitely a big game for the division. So I think that the Utah Utes are going to come out on top at home.
Yeah. Right on. Then we got Arkansas and Memphis. I thought Arkansas looked pretty good last week against Ole Miss. Just missed out in the end. Couldn't quite keep up with the scoring. But so far through the first 2 weeks and then last week, their quarterback, I think it's Talon Green. He's been pretty solid through for like a record over 2 weeks for an Arkansas program. So I'm liking them -6.5. I think they should be able to cover a touchdown against this Memphis team, even on the road.
I don't love the game. I usually like home teams in college, and so 7.5 seems like a solid play for Memphis at home. But like you said, Taylor Green's been balling. I think he's got 14 or 15 scores through 3 games, so that'll be an interesting one to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, for sure. And then we got SMU at TCU. I'm going to take TCU -6.5. I thought that SMU didn't look all that great last week against Missouri State, I believe it was. Was really expecting them to cover the 27.5 point line just because we saw Missouri State get trounced by USC to open the year. And then SMU just didn't really score very efficiently until the second half. I think they still only had 2 or 3 scores in the second half, which was a little bit shocking for me. TCU looked great against UNC, and then they looked great in their second game of the season. So I'm just going to ride that line. They got Hoover at quarterback still. It feels like their offense is clicking on and on running on all four cylinders, and I feel like they're going to be able to cover the 6.5 this week, and this is going to be SMU's toughest matchup yet.
Yeah, this will be an interesting game. My heart is with SMU and Kevin Jennings because you know that we love them and we love him. It was shocking to see them struggling. I think they went into the fourth quarter under 20 points, if I'm not mistaken. I think they ended up just over 30. So it'll be an interesting game. TCU often likes to score a lot of points. Hoover can run it, he can throw it, do a little bit of everything. So I think this could be a high scoring game. I know because of that, the line is pretty high. I believe I saw it at 58. I'm going to buy it to 52. I think the 52 is an easy cover. Even if it falls to a 28-24, you'll have a cover there. So I'm just going to buy it down and take an over on that game.
Yeah, right on. Then we got UNLV at Miami, Ohio. I think the line was like 1.5 points or maybe like 1 point for UNLV, and they've got Dan Mullen as their head coach, who's a former Florida head coach, and I think he's trying to make a statement. And UNLV's look great. They just beat the crap out of UCLA a couple weeks ago, or I can't remember if that was last week. But they're
As
3.
17-point dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know a whole lot about Miami, Ohio still, to be completely honest. But I know this UNLV team is rolling quite a bit, and even on the road, I feel like they got a decent chance to start 4-0 here and make a point for Dan Mullen. So I'm going to stick with them on the money line.
Yeah, I like it. I think Miami, Ohio is 0 for, if I'm not mistaken. I know I saw him with a couple different tougher matchups, but still wasn't very close a game. So don't see a lot out of them. Like you said, good coach over at UNLV. So I'll take them to go 4-0.
Yeah, right on. Then we got Auburn and Oklahoma. Got the Auburn quarterback who transferred from Oklahoma to
Arnold.
Auburn. Yeah, Jackson Arnold. And then we got Mateer, who transferred into Oklahoma, and he's now one of the top two favorites to win the Heisman. So super interesting going on in Oklahoma right now as well. Just beat Michigan and looked great this week as well. I'm going to stick with Oklahoma minus 6.5. I don't love it just because Auburn's defense can step up. But this game is at OU, and I feel like Oklahoma is kind of one of those teams that's flying under the radar right now with what's been going on so far in the college landscape. So I'm going to stick with them minus 6.5. I think they're going to be able to score the ball efficiently, and their defense has been surprisingly good, especially against Michigan, which really shocked me. So if they can kind of keep that up against Auburn here, and I think they should have no problem covering a touchdown.
Yeah, this is a good game. I don't love seven. Seven seems like a lot against usually a good Auburn team, especially with Arnold, who left and got replaced by Mateer. I do think Mateer is the better quarterback. Definitely better at being a dual threat. Arnold more of a pocket passer, turnover prone. So I think Oklahoma should get it done, being at home. Can't say I love the seven, so I'd maybe buy it down to three and hope to cover that.
Yep.
Or if it ends up being a shootout, Oklahoma likes to score the ball with Mateer, so the over under being at 45, I would definitely take an over around that line.
Yeah, I love that over as well. Then we got Tulane and Ole Miss. Ole Miss did come back and cover last week for us against Arkansas, which is pretty cool. I'm gonna stick with that again. Although Tulane has looked great, they just beat up Duke last week, which is pretty surprising. I thought that Duke would have a good chance to win at home there. But yeah, Tulane looks great so far. I just think that playing an SEC team here is going to be a bit of a different beast. So yeah, I'm going to take Ole Miss minus 9.5 is where the line is right now. So I'm just going to ride that. I think that Ole Miss is going to be the better team. Their defense is going to step up in this game for them, and their offense really hasn't had a whole lot of problems yet. So hopefully they'll be able to cover that 9.5.
I gotta figure out what the line was for this game last year because I'm pretty sure we took Tulane to cover the points last year against them, and we lost it on like a walk-off field goal at the end of the game or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's got to
Um,
be.
and, and so I feel like that was a dagger, and I don't know how I'm feeling about it. Um, but 9.5 seems like a lot. That's my first thought on the game. So my lean would be just take a 10.5 Tulane line. Um, Tulane's been hit and miss so far. I think the one time we faded them, it cost us. So um, I think I'll probably just go with. Nah, I don't like it. I'll ride with you. Let's go Lane Kiffin to get us done minus 9.5.
Yeah, right on. And then we got Michigan and Nebraska. Probably one of my most intriguing games of the week. Bryce Underwood obviously did not look great against Oklahoma a couple weeks ago. But then last week, I think everybody was saying he looked like Batman out there. And I was like, well, I'm not sure about that, but he definitely looked much improved. Nebraska, this is definitely their first tough test. Cincinnati is not quite the team that I think everybody was making them out to be. So I'm going to go Michigan money line here at Nebraska. I don't think they can really afford to lose another one early in the season, and I just don't think the Nebraska quarterback is all to ride home about. They've been in a lot of close
Patrick
games.
Mahomes.
Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes 2.0.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, Nebraska was in a close game with Cincy and ended up pulling it out. And I do think they have a little bit of a force there being at home. But I expect Bryce Underwood to be able to break out a little bit in this game. And then Michigan defense has been a little bit suspect here and there, especially in that Oklahoma game. But I just think that they're going to be the better team here in this one against Nebraska.
Yeah, I like that play a lot. Friola's solid, but I wouldn't say he's anything to write home about.
No.
I would say the same thing about Bryce Underwood. So for me, it comes down to who's got the better program and defense, and I think that that's clearly Michigan. So I'll take Michigan just on the money line. I think it's that what a 2 point line, being on the road. But I think Michigan's going to get it done. Um, yeah, that's all I got to say about that one.
Yeah. They've got NC State and Duke, a game that I've been kind of going back and forth about. Duke's 3.5 point favorites against NC State and at home. Took them last week to beat Tulane, and then they ended up getting beat. Can't remember exactly what the score was, but I don't think it was too pretty for them. So I'm still going back and forth in my head because NC State has actually pulled out a lot of these wins earlier in the year. But this could be a little bit more of a struggle because it's an in-state rivalry game. Um, Gosh, the more I think about it, I'm just not even sure. I think I'm just going to take Duke money line again and just hope they win this game. But I'm not confident at all in this one. I don't know exactly what the line is. I think it's 3.5, but yeah, I just don't know if I could take that. So I'll stick with Duke on the money line.
Yeah, I'm gonna go no play on this one, but I will be rooting for the Wolfpack. So let's go NC State. Hopefully, I'll have some popcorn in hand and watch that one. Call it a
Yeah,
day.
right on. Then we got West Virginia at Kansas. Kansas, I believe, 9.5 point favorites. Could be a little bit higher. Um, but West Virginia looked great last week against Pitt. They came back and won at home. Looked really good doing it. But this is a team that I think is just going to struggle on the road. They got a lot going for them when they're at home with those fans getting all rowdy, and I think the players kind of feed off that. But on the road against Kansas, I think this is just going to be a really tough game for them. And I'm not sure. I think 9.5 is enough. This Kansas team's looked really good on the offensive side of the ball so far, and so I'm just going to ride with them 9.5.
Yeah, this is interesting. Jalen Daniels, I feel like's been there for forever.
It feels like it, yeah.
Like I know he was splitting time with Bean, and he was injured a lot, so Bean took over, and obviously loved Jason getting a lot of clutch wins for us with Kansas before. West Virginia's kind of cheeks. The only reason we were on them last week to cover 7.5 was just because it was a huge rivalry with Pitt and them, and they were getting 7.5 at home.
Yeah.
Um, and they were about to lose by 7, clutched up, ended up winning in overtime. So I really don't think they're that good. I think Kansas is solid, and they're usually able to run the ball effectively. I wouldn't be surprised if they ran for 300, and so I could see them easily covering 10 points.
Yeah, right on. Then we got South Carolina at Missouri. South Carolina lost Lenore Sellers to a concussion. I think he actually is still questionable to play this week, but I doubt that he will. Especially with the 5 games that they have coming up. I talked to Zach a little bit about this before the podcast. They've got like 5 ranked games in their next 6 games, so it's going to be super tough. And they're in the SEC, so that makes it even tougher. Um, Missouri, another team that is just pretty solid on the offensive side of the ball. South Carolina has been decent on defense, but they're away in this game, and I think Mizzou again plays really well at home. So 9.5 points without Lenore Sellers. I do like Missouri to cover that.
I don't love 10 points or 9 points. It just seems like a lot. I think that they'll get it done. I think that would be between 3 and 7. So I think I'd probably be comfortable buying it down even to maybe 4 or 5 points and taking Mizzou. I think that Prabula has looked really good for Missouri. I think they're 2-1 or 3-0. But he was originally with Penn State right behind Drew Aller, and when he had a couple chances to play, he looked solid even with Penn State. So I think that they should be able to move the ball effectively. I think it'll be on that lower scoring side where it ends up being close, which is why I'm seeing more of a 4 to 7 probably point game. But I'm comfortable with Mizzou at home getting the win and at least covering 4.
Yeah, right on. Then we got Florida and Miami. Another in-state rivalry game for Florida. Um, just don't trust that team much anymore. They lost to USF at home, then went and lost on the road to LSU last week. Lagway threw 5 interceptions to LSU's defense. He looked like he was seeing stars out there, to be honest. And Miami has been solid so far. Their defense has been definitely something to write home about. They've moved all the way up to 4th in the rankings, and I think it's much deserved. I think Cristobal's got that defense firing on all cylinders, and Carson Beck's been able to figure some things out over the first couple weeks, getting a win over Notre Dame, then getting a nice win last week as well. I just think that Miami is going to be a little bit too tough of a team for Florida. I don't know exactly where the line is, but it's not much right now, and I was kind of shocked by that. So I'm just going to stick with Miami on the money line.
Yeah, this game's very interesting because it's another Florida matchup. They're not too far away from each other. But like I said, Miami's looked phenomenal. It's probably been the biggest surprise to me. Now, Notre Dame, I will say, didn't look good at all. But um, a dominant win against South Florida that looked good for a few games that they played before that. Like you said, Florida hasn't looked great. But I will say the fact that you had 5 picks and you only lost by 10, you only gave up 20. I'd say that's a pretty insane stat, to be honest. So their defense stepped up at least last week. I lost even though they gave up, I think it was 18 to South Florida. So their defense has been good. I think Carson Beck and that offense will be able to get the ball moving a little bit more effectively. But I could see this very low scoring. I could see under 40, 42 points, somewhere around that line. I think Miami will end up winning probably by a field goal.
Yeah, right on. And then we got Illinois and Indiana, a game that's actually also pretty intriguing. These two teams are ranked, not something you typically see from these two teams. So Indiana's looked great the last couple of years. Got their coaching, got some recruiting in. They ended up getting both the Mendoza brothers as their quarterback and quarterback two over from Cal. Illinois obviously has I can't remember this dude's name. Guy you
Luke
don't like as
Altmaier.
much. Yeah, Luke Altmaier at quarterback. I think he's going to struggle in this game. I think Indiana's defense is much improved and looking a lot better than they did a year ago, especially when they played the tough teams. It didn't look all that great. But yeah, I like Indiana in this game at home. I feel like they're going to come out and bring it quite a bit. And I just hope that they can hold Luke Altmaier to not much passing, because if they do, I don't think they're going to have a whole lot of trouble. But if he gets going, you never know. So I'll stick with Indiana on the money line though.
Yeah, I got no feeling on this game at all. Mendoza's solid, but coming from Cal, he's not like he's that special of a player. And Illinois got a really good defense. And then I hate Luke Altmaier's guts. I've taken him once this year, and he got it done against Duke, but I'm not going to do it again. So I'm just going to no play this one.
Yeah, right on. Then we got ASU and Baylor. This game is in Texas, so it will be interesting to see how Baylor plays at home. Arizona State was a little bit suspect on the road against Mississippi State. They're 4-point dogs in this one, so it kind of shocked me a little bit because they did look a lot better last week than they did at Mississippi State. One of my best buds went to ASU, and he was a little bit upset about how they played at Mississippi State, and really understandable, but it's still a pretty young team trying to develop without a Scattaboo. I thought Levitt definitely played a lot better last week, so I'm expecting him to kind of keep it going. I don't think the Baylor defense is all that special. Arizona State's defense is pretty solid when they play good. So I do think that that'll be, the thing that kind of keeps them in this game if it is high scoring, as their defense will be able to make plays late in the game. So I'm going to stick with Arizona State +4.
This is an interesting one because Levitt hasn't looked great yet. Jordan Tyson's a dog, and obviously, love the coaching over there. Baylor at home has been pretty solid the last couple of years. Obviously, lost the start of the year in a good game, but against an Auburn team that is pretty fierce.
Yeah,
But the over under is 60.5, and I feel like if it's gonna go high, I don't know if I can see Arizona putting up more than 31 with how they've looked so far. So it's making me lean on Baylor. But I know we really like the Devils, so I'll take the +3, or if you're taking it at +4, I'll ride that with you. Just because I think Levitt's better than he's looked, and I do think that they have some good weapons on the offensive side. Um, I don't know, 60 seems like a lot. And if it's a shootout, I feel like Baylor with Sawyer Robertson's going to be able to get it done. But I feel like it'll honestly go under, and I
yeah,
don't really like unders, so play that with caution.
yeah. No, I agree with you. Could be another high scoring game. Baylor loves those type of games, but Arizona State's defense definitely has gotten a lot better over the last few years. Played Texas tough in a semifinal last year, so hopefully they can just kind of continue to do that, and I think that'll keep them in this game. And even if Baylor walks off on a field goal, then we'll still cover the 4. So we'll see how it goes. Last couple, I love both these games. Got BYU against East Carolina. They're on the road, only a 6.5-point favorites, and BYU I think has been one of the most dominant teams in college football thus far, even with losing Retzlaff to Tulane. So I'm going to stick with BYU minus 6.5. I think that roster is very, very underrated, and with the schedule that they have this year, I feel like they have a decent shot to end up making the college football playoff. In order to do that, they got to win these games convincingly, and this one's on the road against an Eastern Carolina team that's also looked decent, decent so far. But I just love the BYU roster, so I'm gonna stick with them minus 6.5.
Yeah, I love this play. Even buying it to 4, like I feel like I just love that. It feels so free.
Yeah,
Um, through 2 games, BYU is 96 points, and they've given up 3. So a 6 point line seems very weird to me. Maybe it's a trap, but I'm going to walk into it and take BYU. Love the Cougs. It is on the road, which is the only scary thing about it, is they usually suck on the road. But even last year, they had 11 wins, and I think that they got better than last year. So I am going to take that, and I'm gonna like it until I see otherwise.
yeah. I'm gonna take the 6.5, and I'm actually even gonna sprinkle a little bit on maybe like a minus 17.5, or maybe a minus 19.5, because it's probably gonna be around like plus 500 or so. That might be a good chance to win quite a bit of the money back that I might lose on some of the other ones. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit there as well. If you like BYU as much as we do, it makes sense. This team really does have a good roster, and I think they're going to come to play against East Carolina this weekend. And then last game on the slate for me, Michigan State at USC. Not, are you going to that game?
Yeah, I'll be at that game.
Okay, so yeah, that'll be a fun game to watch. I think USC right now is 17.5 point favorites. Um,
A lot.
it is a lot of points. Michigan State's usually pretty decent defense, but this game is in LA, and USC has looked pretty good on the offensive side of the ball thus far. As long as they don't fumble a kickoff or make any stupid mistakes with fumbles or turnovers, I feel like they'll be able to cover that. But I'm going to buy it down to 13.5. I feel like most likely it's going to probably like be a 42-24 game, maybe 40 or 37-21. But either way, with those scores, it should be okay at 13.5. So I'm going to stick with USC and ride them. One of the teams that was not given any love in the top 25 preseason that we've loved and I had them at 15 or 16 open this season. I still think that they deserve to be there. I still don't think they're getting enough love right now. Obviously, they got a really tough season in the Big Ten ahead of them. But with the way they've looked so far, I don't think there's anything that you can see that goes, oh, this team isn't a top 25 team. So we'll see how it turns out for them.
Yeah, definitely with you there. I think they're a top 25 team. Glad that they finally snuck in at 25.
Yeah.
Now, this is a tough game, and I feel like Michigan State, like you said, usually has a good defense. 17.5 seems like a lot, so I'm just going to take plus 17.5 for Michigan State to cover. Maybe it's a turnover or two that can go wrong, or a fumble, a pick, maybe six off a kickoff. But I am feeling like Michigan State might be able to cover 17.5. If they start with the score early, then you can get a better line on SC where you can grab a 10 or even a 13 if that's the side that you're leaning on. But I think I'm just going to take the 17.5 and hope that it's a good game that USC at least can pull away from by the end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, right on. And I think you had one more game for us that you wanted to talk about real quick.
Yeah, I love Iowa versus Rutgers. I think is a very interesting game. We've talked about Iowa. I love their defense. I think they're a very solid team. Had a really good game against Iowa State, which we were looking forward to, and both hit on that. But Gronowski was a two-time champion with South Dakota State. He's the quarterback at Iowa now, and their defense is solid. And then on the other side, Rutgers has the quarterback that I liked a couple years ago at Minnesota, Athan Kaliakmanis. I like him, but I can't say he's great. He turns over the ball a lot, especially against good teams. And I think Iowa's got a good defense, so I expect him to throw a pick or two. Should allow Iowa to uh, get ahead early, and I think that they're going to be able to run the ball effectively to at least pull away and finish the game with a big road win for them. So we'll see how that plays out. Rutgers is, I think, 3-0 right now and at home, but I do think Iowa's going to be able to get that dub on the road.
Yeah, and the more I'm thinking about this, it's like, Iowa does seem like a pretty solid pick here. They can throw the ball a bit now, on which they didn't have it all last year, and they still managed to win a lot of games. On their defense, though, have been great. Not really a whole lot else to say other than that Iowa defense always keeps it low scoring. I think last season a majority of their games over unders were at like 35, which is absolutely insane for
And it
college.
went under every time.
Every time it was like 28 points. It's like, oh my gosh, how can they? I don't know if they can bring these lines any lower. But obviously, with a quarterback now, they should be scoring a little bit more. So I'm sure those lines will stay up a little bit. Yeah, I do like Iowa on the money line, 10 in the week. Yeah, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys for listening. We will catch you next week for some more NFL Week 4, College Football Week 5. Go Ducks this week. We've got Oregon State, so big rivalry. I'm not touching the game just because you never know with a rivalry game like this. May not see this one too much more, and it's one of the longest standing rivalries, specifically because the Pac-12 is terrible. Washington State and Oregon State, I believe, are both 0 Washington State might be 1 for. But yeah, they're both terrible. I just hope the Ducks kick the crap out of them because that's what we do. Take care of these little brothers of ours. So yeah, go Ducks, and we'll see you guys back next week. Oregon has a big game against Penn State next week. That'll be an absolute blast to talk about. So definitely be sure to tune in next week as well. And if you enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe. Text us, DM us on Instagram. We got It's Too Easy podcast on Instagram. Been giving out a lot of plays there on player props and stuff that Zach likes, and I like. He's been throwing them on there as well. And I think it's been paying off so far. A lot of futures on there as well. If you haven't gotten a chance to check our futures video out, you can definitely check out some of the picks on there. So yeah, until next week, we will see you guys later. Peace.